Coming up next, I'm talking with two St. Paul residents who've recently filed suit against the Central Corridor. Up next on the St. Paul Forum. Welcome to the St. Paul Forum. I'm Lisa Tabor, your guest host, along with John Forty, while Mike Wassenaar is on sabbatical. Today I'm talking with two St. Paul residents who've recently filed suit against the Central Corridor, Rena Moran and Veronica Burt. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you here, and I really appreciate your being here in the midst of this rather contested issue. It's
correct.
Lovely that we have you two here.
Thank you.
Could you please give us an update or actually an explanation of what the lawsuit is?
Right. Well, actually the lawsuit was filed in federal court last week, and it really alleges that the government agencies who are the responsible planning bodies for the Central Corridor line have failed to analyze the impacts that this light rail project is going to have on businesses and residents who are protected classes of people, low-income minority populations, also called environmental justice communities. And the lawsuit also alleges that the project agencies have failed to mitigate those impacts. And so the lawsuit essentially is raising a lot of concerns that community members and residents have been raising for the past 5 years with this light rail project.
Well, and so why now, if it's been 5 years?
Why now? That's a very good question. Why now? Because essentially our window of opportunity to actually file a lawsuit under the National Environmental Protection Act is closing. And so similar to the university who filed a lawsuit, I think a bit earlier in the summer, they also wanted to be sure that that particular opportunity to leverage what they think is important relative to this project wouldn't close. And so we found that we had the same kind of opportunity available to our communities and decided, to follow through in following with the lawsuit.
Right.
So
you're only two plaintiffs, and actually, Veronica, you are an organizer. Correct. And helped the community to organize itself around this lawsuit and get ready and prepared and strategize. Right. Who else is a plaintiff in the lawsuit?
Well, the plaintiff is really a coalition of Rondo-based community members and Rondo-based agencies. And they are, the lead plaintiff is the St. Paul NAACP branch, as well as the Aurora St. Anthony Neighborhood Development Corporation, Community Stabilization Project, and one of the historic churches in the neighborhood, Pilgrim Baptist Church, along with residents such as Ms. Rena Moran, who are those directly impacted, as well as some African-American based businesses on the corridor itself.
Okay, thank you. And the organizations are typically the ones who file suit. They have resources. How does it come about that a resident or several residents are filing suit along with? Could you explain, Rena?
Well, I can say 4 years ago I moved into the Rondo community. I moved into the community because just asking questions from current residents, I found that the community was diverse. It was a community of people who were engaged, still angry about I-94, but were really empowered to make a difference as to what their community looked like. So for me, and it was definitely a community that I knew I could afford. So for me, it was like, I want to be a part of this great community. 4 years ago, as I was moving in, I heard about the light rail that was coming through the community. And for me, as a resident and a homeowner who's at that medium income of that area, my first thought was, wow, I'm going to be taxed out of my home. Because with redevelopment, with a light rail coming through a community, someone has to pay for that. So, and a part of that was through the 4 years that I have lived in that community, I really felt in many ways that the voices of homeowners and residents were not being heard. Quite frankly, around what the impact of that development could cause. And so, just from conversation with other residents, with the support of Aurora St. Anthony and organizations like Take Action Minnesota, and Micah giving us that technical support to organize and give us a voice, we brought residents together to plan, to strategize, to implement a policy that we introduced at a meeting on November 21st as an option or a way to help sustain current residents through the development of light rail.
Okay. And who is supporting you in that policy? Who did you aim the policy at?
Well, I have to just go back a little bit to say that part of the planning was to talk initially to every council member, talking to the mayor, Nancy Holman, who is the mayor's point person, just to get an idea about how something could be worked out. So our target, though, or I should not say a target specifically, but 2 council members who are in direct correlation with the Central Corridor is Council Member Melvin Carter and Council Member Russ Stark, who we was in conversations with our proposal.
Okay. And so in that case, it seems to be moving forward your concern about gentrification, about being priced out of your home, costed out of your home, actually,
yes.
taxed out of your home.
Yes.
And so it seems like that is moving forward. What made you still decide to stick with the lawsuit?
Well, I think a lot of times when you have a city and development that is taking place in a community that's historically like ours, who sometimes do not have a voice, who sometimes overlooked, sometimes when the disparities are increased, it's not about pitting, residents against businesses. It's about us all coming together because we all are going to be impacted by this process in some way. So it just seemed like the right thing to do, a good way to go to be a part of allowing our voices to be heard and say, we're here.
To officially put your support behind the other efforts.
Absolutely.
Moving forward, that's great. Now, you brought up an interesting point to me, which is that apparently it seems like the community's voice hasn't been heard in 5 years. However, the Central Corridor documents, dozens of meetings with the community. So how do you explain the difference between your position and their position on community engagement?
Right. Well, and that's a question, or at least a position that has been brought up repeatedly by the Metropolitan Council. And our clear response to that is there's a difference when you can engage people versus when you can actually implement their solutions and their proposed ideas. And that's where we're seeing the project fall extremely short. And it has made community members so frustrated in the process that we've actually had some who left the involvement of the community, I think it's called the CAC, Community Advisory Council. Again, feeling like, I'm sitting there, I'm participating, I'm part of a process, and yet I'm not being heard.